Hi Deepak, welcome to the second edition of this Deloitte Entrepreneur Summit. Uh, just two, three things wanted to ask you. What's your take on the format, and did it meet your objectives for what you would have come here today?
Thanks, Puneet. Thanks for having me here. I think it's a really good format. It's highly efficient. I think it's very difficult to meet a number of private companies in a limited time frame. And I think what you've been able to achieve is to invite a good number of companies which are relevant, which are interesting, and hence I think it's been a very productive day. There's not that many days where you get to meet 4 or 5 private companies of relevance on the same day. So I would say it's something that, if possible, to sort of do more of such events and activities, and I would love to participate in the ways we can.
A little bit from a Nuvama Capital's perspective, what all sectors are you focused on, and for those particular sectors, where do you see the M&A market moving from what it was in last 2 years versus what do you foresee in next 2 years, if you have a view there?
Yeah. So we are and will continue to be a sector agnostic kind of a firm. We don't really think of a certain sectors versus the others, but the way we kind of think about building our investment thesis from a long-term perspective is to sort of focus on a couple of things, right? So first is we want to participate in a part of the economy where we believe there will be long-term secular growth, right? The sectors which are in general sort of growing faster than the overall GDP, right? So that's the first important criteria that we have in terms of having a thematic sort of a bias. And within those sub-industries, niche industries, we always look for companies which already are or are looking to become the market leaders within those space. Where we believe that there's a disproportionate share of revenues and even more higher share of profits that gets captured by the top 2 or 3 players in any given industry. And those companies will continue to gain more and more market share. They'll continue to win and create an advantage over a period of time. And those are the kind of companies that we look to sort of participate. That's what we have done. We invested in about 24, 25 odd companies in the last, I would say, 5 years. And each one of our investee companies is among the top 2 or 3 players within the industries that they operate, and that's the way we sort of think about building a portfolio. And then the next question that you talked about is, how do you think about the last 2 years versus the the next 2 years, so to speak? See, I would say we've been very thoughtful and careful about deploying capital in the last 2 years. We are, I would say, one of the few funds who have been extremely inactive in terms of deploying capital, right? And in last 16 months, for example, we've not done any transaction. The last transaction that we've done was like in October of 21, right? So, and the reason why that is important is not because of lack of work, right? The amount of deal flow that we saw in the last 15 months, 18 months is the highest ever deal flow that I saw personally in the last 13 years, right? But when we kind of look at a micro basis, when you try and sort of build, okay, what this company can be in next few years, what the steady state profit will look like. Half of these companies were not profitable when we were looking at them, but okay, that's fine. What it can look like on a long-term basis, at least we were not able to form conviction. And at a very micro level, at a company level, is where we have to kind of say no to most of these, actually all of these proposals in that sense, right? Now, many people characterize the current period or what's going on right now as a funding winter, right? Many people think, and I think that if you characterize something as that label, I think people believe it's something that will go away. This is a transitory sort of phase, and again we'll kind of get to a zone which will be, what was like 21 and 22. And in my view, that's probably the biggest mistake that somebody can have. In my personal view, I think what we saw in 21, 22 was a transitory phase, right? And again, in my own words, I call that the attack of White Walkers, so to speak, right? A bunch of people came, gave crazy valuations, crazy amount of money to large number of companies, and while some promoters like to believe that that's the phase that will again come sometimes near future, but if that's how you're preparing your business, then, and it may happen, I don't know the future, but then you're putting a you're taking a very high risk for survival. I think you have to believe that what we are having right now, which is a very deliberate sort of a process in terms of diligence, in terms of conversations, in terms of meeting of minds, and then eventually cutting a check, is the right way of doing business. Again, in the last 13, 14 years, that's always the way business happened. So this is not a unique sort of scenario. This is the way the business should be done. And in my view, while somebody may feel still the I would say the withdrawal symptoms, right? It's there's a lot of free money available now. It's not there. I think this is the time when we'll eventually find out which companies are kind of meant or built in a way that they'll survive and do well, and which are the ones which will sort of go out of the market. So in my view, this is the norm. This is the way the business needs to be done, and in my view, this is not a transitory phase, and hence this is what's going to stay. So I think that's the way, at least that's the way I think about it, and I hope the people who are looking to build businesses also kind of think about it in that fashion. Thank you.
To hear that. Lastly, Deepak, just happy to hear if you have any feedback or suggestions for this event. We plan to do this going forward as well. So how can we make it better? If there is anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I don't know if call it suggestion or a complaint, but I would say there were a few companies that I would have loved to sort of meet, and they were here today, and I did not get an opportunity. So maybe, I don't know, if you can extend it in 2 days, when make sure there's enough opportunities to meet all of these companies in that sense. I would sort of maybe think about that. See, as an investor, I can always demand a little bit more. I would say having more number of companies is better than sort of having less number of companies. So if you can have more companies participate in these events, I think that'll be super useful. I think that's what I would say.
We will definitely consider your suggestion. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thanks for having me.